Podcasting by Professionals teaches you to become the expert host of your own show and podcast for profit. Join us. We're reaching millions.
Welcome to Podcast for Profit. I'm Teresa Maron, the Learn To Queen, and our show is presented by Podcasting.By.Professionals.com. If you want to podcast for profit, then you're in the right place. Our show covers topics like content marketing, collaborations, marketing through social media and affiliate sales, and you'll get the up-to-the-minute industry news on syndication and distribution from Podcast.Place.
Global Broadcasting Networks is a proud sponsor of this show, brought to you by Podcasting by Professionals. At GBN, we provide the ultimate experience in professionally produced podcasting and live aired radio shows through our network stations, including TogiNet.com, AllBusinessRadioNetwork.com, and LessonsInJoyfulLivingRadioNetwork.com. We are currently listened to in over 200 countries around the globe and plan to double our listening audience in 2015. We are currently looking for great content providers just like you to start your own show to reach your target niche market. We have listeners from all areas of the cultural, spiritual, and business communities looking for the convenience of connecting with you through your podcasts. What we look for in our radio show host is the commitment to professional training and show development so that you will be set up as the expert in your niche right away. We know that this is essential for your success, and that's why we are proud to sponsor Podcasting by Professionals. Ask your trainer at Podcasting by Professionals how you can get started with your very own radio show today.
Today, our show is about how to become a success story. Our pros focus on making the right decisions about getting guests, marketing platforms, and content when you start your successful podcast. First up, get valuable tips from Suzanne Strisower about how to bring value to your podcast topics with the right guest. Then, we get to listen in as Martha Sanchez talks to her guest star Carol McManus about the choices she made when starting her show and why. Give consistency and value to your listeners with 5 ways to give them what they want on Learn To with Teresa Maron. And stay tuned for red hot right now insider news from the exploding podcast industry with Podcast.Place. Now, Suzanne Strisower on choosing the right guest for your show.
Think about this. There are over 7 billion people on the planet today, and you have an infinite amount of people to choose from. One of the great benefits of podcasting is that you have a global audience, and you also have a global pool of guests that's just as big. So as you're beginning your podcasting, when you're starting out, my rule of thumb is start close to home. And the reason for that is that you want people who you know so you can feel comfortable with your interview process. And so you want to pick people who know something about your topic and your brand and your message. It could be family, friends, peers, colleagues, or people that you already know who are connected to your show's genre. The reason for this is twofold. One is that you already know them and you have a rapport with them, and that makes the flow much easier in an interview or conversation, rapport, just the back and forth of a podcast, because you're thinking about this big void out there with your audience. So you want to have an easy, fun time where you can lose yourself and be less subconscious when you're working with, and conscious when you're working with someone that you know. The second reason is that you already have that rapport, and you don't want to make mistakes with people that you don't know. So when you're working with people you already know and have rapport, you guys know how to fix things with each other. So if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter because they're not part of your long-range A-list guest strategies. My original mentor on the FM station said that it takes about 3 months for you to settle into your show's rhythms and how you'll feel comfortable doing your shows or interview. Use this time to start by interviewing people that you already know. And this makes it much easier. It makes you be able to get the flow together and you're not so uptight. And just know that during your first 3 months of your show, it's going to morph and change, and as you're actually doing things, you'll feel what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And so just let that flow happen. But before we pick guests, I want you to think about something called a show calendar. And the show calendar is the dates and topics you plan to cover on a particular topic and a particular date. So the reason I recommend doing a download of all the possible topics you want to cover for your show's theme and genre is that you want to be able to do things timely and that are relevant. So not only are you creating useful content with your show, but you're also tying it into actual current events on the planet, which gives it that much more of a benefit. So for instance, if I'm doing an author show, what kinds of shows could I do? So this is brainstorming the types of shows that you could do just about authors, and then I'm going to show you how the show calendar works with this. So first, you could do fiction or nonfiction or both. You could do particular types of nonfiction, such as health and wellness. I could do author shows of historical fiction or biographies. I could do shows on local authors, booksellers, and people that want to promote books in some way. I could interview other radio show hosts who interview authors, or author shows on award-winning authors, people in the book publishing industry, or book promotions. Any of those things are relevant to your content. Then, once you think about all the content that you have for your show, then you figure out who good guests might be and who the A-list people might be that you want to interview over time. Also with the show calendar, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at, and Chase's calendar of days is certainly one way to do that, you're going to want to go and look at Chase's calendar of days to see what author events coincide with the authors you have, so you can tie your shows in to exactly what's happening on the planet. Or if you happen to be in a surfing show or surfing music, you could look at when the big shows are happening, what the big competitions are happening on the island of Hawaii, or big waves or whatever. You want to tie things in. And so that's why I want you to brainstorm your show topics, and I want you to then create a show calendar, because that leads you to your ideal guests. I'm Suzanne Strisower.
This is Podcasting by Professionals. Up next, Carol McManus on Internet Radio.
Thank you for dropping by. A short while ago, I got the opportunity to talk to Carol McManus about what she thought was the most important things that beginners should consider when you are starting a podcast. And her answers were so riveting that I asked her if I could record it. So listen in. I'd like to welcome my guest from our sponsors, GBN's All Business Radio Network, Carol McManus, the LinkedIn lady, who is an excellent resource and a success story in internet radio. So let's talk about the variety of services that internet radio stations offer to their hosts.
Well, I did my research because my radio career actually started in terrestrial radio on an AM station, but if you know AM or FM at all, you know that it's defined by geography. Well, internet radio, let's start right there. That's the biggest benefit, is the fact that you have the whole globe at your fingertips. There are no limitations as long as the person has internet access and knows where and how to find you. So that was the first thing. And then once I decided that internet radio was the way I wanted to go, I did look at a lot of the options that were out there, and there are many options. You came to the same conclusions that I did. I wanted to work with a station that really cared about me as a host, that gave me all of that back-end technical support that I needed, and had the quality of both equipment and sound and all of the technical pieces put together so that I could focus on my show and my content and my guests.
Why waste your time trying to figure all these things out when you're not an expert if you can get somebody to do it for you? And you get the added value of the additional marketing, because it's a win-win for these internet radio stations. The more people that listen to their hosts, the more listeners they get to their radio station, and sponsors and advertisers to their radio stations, right?
You know what the analogy would be? It would be the band that's trying to get their first sort of cut recorded, and those that do it in a garage versus those that spend the money and go to a professional studio to have that recording made. And it's very much the same, but most of us are more focused on the content than we are the technical. So the idea of working with a network that provides that technical support, can edit, before it's burned to podcast, because you and I do our shows live, and things happen, things go wrong, but then you've got the professional team there that can very quickly and efficiently edit it and make sure the sound is clear, and then they put it up in podcast form, and we're ready to publish it, out to the world for ongoing listening, as opposed to just for those who weren't able to listen live.
And that makes all the difference, because that long-term product that you have, which is a podcast, you want it to be good quality. You don't want it to, have all the little glitches that what I call the internet gremlins effect.
Mm-hmm.
Which, let's talk about the internet gremlins, Carol, because we have to keep it real. We have to keep it real.
Yeah, even when you're working with a professional network, the fact of the matter is it's not a perfect world. If you're using Skype to talk to the station or to your guest, Skype, as we know, is very buggy and very finicky. Even then, it's not a disaster. I mean, things happen, and I find that the audience listening to internet radio are very, very tolerant because they do understand that it is the internet. They themselves, I'm sure, have experienced, having their computer freeze up or, things happen, things not loading properly. So we're still in a pretty forgiving world. But it doesn't mean you should just try to do it sloppily and not worry about those things. You want that to be the exception, not the rule.
What about the marketing? What have your experiences been about the marketing aspects and the added benefit of that with a radio station, an internet radio station?
I find as a host, and having done this for a long time, the responsibility is mine to do the marketing, to market my show and my guests and what's happening, because I'm in the driver's seat. But it doesn't mean that I don't get support from the station, because the station does promote. They support us through tweeting. They're promoting on Facebook through their Facebook page. So it's this symbiotic relationship. But I do think there is a huge and distinctive difference between just burning a podcast on an MP3 and sort of hoping people are going to discover it, versus having it being the footnote on the foundation coming from a radio show where there is that reliability and that sustainability and people can listen live, they can connect with you. So having that partnership from a marketing standpoint where you are really directing people to a radio network as opposed to, please just go find my information in the sea of information that's out there.
Now, let's talk a little bit, too, about choosing the right radio station, whether it's the main radio station or a white label station, to help podcasters reach their target audience. I found that is critical in really boosting your numbers and really reaching the people you want. And I'd like to hear your take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, mine has been a journey of discovery and of really beginning to understand this space. So just real quickly, I started on an AM news talk radio. I moved to a generic branded station. Then I moved to a branded station that was really tied to a personality of the single person who was the owner of the station. And as I progressed with GBN, the discussions were, when people listen to radio, they're used to tuning into a specific station with the expectation of getting particular programming. So, for example, you might have your dial set up on your car or on your home radio for jazz or for news talk or for weather and traffic or for 60s or for Howard Stern, whatever it is. You know with reliability what you're going to get when you hear. One of the cautions that I would put out there for people as you're choosing a station is their brand and are the sister stations shows that are on with you reaching the same target audience that you're trying to reach, because you want to build a cohesive audience that really wants to listen to this station all the time, which is why I, like you, chose All Business Radio Network, because it absolutely hit my target audience. And I think that this is where internet radio is sort of growing up and realizing that the generic brands that we're used to are okay, but there's no continuity between programming where people know, hey, when I listen to any show on this network, I'm going to get the kind of programming that I want. So again, if you're trying to reach the Latino market, maybe you want to be on a Latino or Hispanic network. If you're in the health and wellness space, maybe you want to be on a health and wellness station. So that would be the caution that I would say, because I think that's where internet radio is maturing. I think that's where it's going. And I think most importantly, that's what's really going to help the consumer buy into this and really recognize that there's something special there that really speaks to their needs.
That's exactly my experience, as you well know. We both had similar experiences. I had reached a plateau where I wasn't getting more of my target market, and I was looking for the right place to showcase my expertise where the people that are looking for my expertise could find it. And that's the key. If you're not where they're going to look, they're never going to find you, just like with any type of marketing. And choosing the right radio station is part of your marketing. Let's talk a little bit about the importance in your success and how preparing yourself and getting trained affected you.
Well, I have to tell you, that's one of the things I love about what you are doing with the podcasting by professionals, because you are teaching people how to do it. When I first started in this space, I had a good mentor who happened to be the general manager of the AM station that I was starting on, because I had been on the other side of the microphone over my professional career. I'd always been interviewed. I'd never actually been the host of my own show. So that was new space for me, and I got some really, really good guidance because I happened to be in the right place at the right time. But even with AM and FM, you can't count on the fact that somebody is going to be there to teach you. And I really, really believe there are a lot of people who have moved into this space. You know, there's some brands out there that make it very easy and almost ridiculously affordable to access podcasting, and yet you're not really helping your brand or your professionalism if you're unprepared, if you really, as I say, can't put a sentence together and a cogent thought so people are really tuned in, because again, your voice is all you've got to communicate to people. They're not looking at your face or your body language, your facial expressions. All they are hearing is the tone, the pace, the inflection of your voice, and the credibility with which you come through those airwaves. Do you know what you're talking about? Are you managing your time well? Are there too many pregnant pauses? Are there too many uhs and ums? And all of the other things in terms of, you know, preparing yourself, having your questions lined up, making sure your guest is prepared if you're interviewing someone else. This is not something you just jump into, I don't think, and assume that you're going to be successful. So getting trained is huge, and that's what you guys are bringing to the market, and I just think that is amazing. It absolutely will shorten your learning curve, and you don't want to, because this is an investment. This isn't free. You are going to make a marketing investment in your business, in your brand, in your future, and you don't want to make a misstep, because it really, really can hurt your credibility badly. And Martha, you and I both know people on air who have really not had a terrific experience on radio, probably could have benefited by some training before they really went live.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, I've often said what I would have given to know what I know now then. I probably would have, gotten here a lot faster, right?
Absolutely.
Well, listen, Carol, it has been wonderful to have you as a guest, and thank you again. Carol McManus, the LinkedIn lady. So thank you, Carol.
Thank you so much, Martha. Thanks for having me.
This is Martha Sanchez signing off. Imagine having a success story of your own. Whether you want to start your own podcast or re-energize your current one, the Podcasting by Professionals newsletter has what you need to be successful and on the cutting edge of the podcasting wave. So take advantage of this marketing opportunity of a lifetime and start getting your message out to millions by engaging new audiences in the fastest way possible through a podcast. So visit podcastingbyprofessionals.com and sign up for our newsletter today. That's podcastingbyprofessionals.com.
1.5 billion smartphones are waiting for content. Currently, 159 million Americans listen to online radio. Yes, podcasting is here to stay. However, podcasting is more than just sticking a microphone in front of you and talking. Our program, Podcasting for Beginners, will start you with all of the right moves to create a look, feel, and experience that your listeners will not soon forget. Create authority in your industry and connect with new customers with a professional podcast. Isn't that what you want? Join us at Podcasting by Professionals. Our 5-hour program is an easy-to-follow, step-by-step instructional to help you avoid the mistakes that can keep you in a holding pattern for months, even years. Early bird pricing available now at podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Join us and get your name in the game. We're reaching millions.
Hi there, I'm Teresa Maron, and I'm the Learn To Queen. Join me and my guest expert collaboration partners for an inside look at the problem-solving industry. We want to help you so that you can help others.
Who are your listeners and what do they want? How can your podcast serve them? This is 5 ways to give your listeners what they want. Knowing the right answers to those questions is the success of your show. The theme, the guest you choose, and the way you present them are based on who is most likely to listen to your show. When you give them what they want as a takeaway for the exchange of their time to listen to your show, you create content with value. So, who are your listeners? Your message needs to speak directly to them. Are you this person? Have you ever been? What do you have in your life experience that would showcase you as the expert to this person? You want them to feel a rapport with you right away by feeling you understand them. Your listeners want consistency and value with content that relates to them in a very personal way. I like to think of podcasts in 5 big headings or types of content for your show. First, be a resource. 2, teach a skill. 3, solve a problem. 4, entertain. 5, introduce. Let's explore what your listeners expect and what your content needs to deliver if you are going to give them what they want. If you are a resource of specific information, your listeners are looking for something they're passionately interested in. They want convenience, an all-in-one place information source, something thought-provoking, and maybe even a different perspective. Your show needs to be timely, and your listeners want to take away something that they will think about for a while. If you teach a skill, hobby, or lifestyle, your listeners are looking for instruction. They want to learn, and since it's on the air, it needs to be very step-by-step. Give them the materials to assemble, the budget, how to address specific concerns, the time commitment, and most important, how they can use it. If you solve a problem, then your listeners are looking for solutions. Give them the support that they need with new therapies, the latest research and findings, interviews with industry-recognized experts. Let them know what other people like them are doing. And a success story every now and then wouldn't hurt. They want inspiration. They want an aha moment. If you want to entertain, consider, do you want to deliver your own content, showcase others, or even do a combination of both? You want to change their state, give them some freedom from worries, relaxation. You want them to have some fun. If they tune in bored, tired, or stressed, and tune out refreshed, they'll come back week after week. Choosing to introduce a specific community gives your listeners a feeling of belonging, new conversations, and to be in the know. You need to excite their senses and give total immersion. If it's Creole cooking, then they want to smell it and taste it. If it's scuba diving, they want to feel that water on their faces. Your listeners want to feel like they are right there with you. Now, how does this benefit you? You'll build a loyal listener base for your next launch, collaboration, or live event, and grow your professional reach in the fastest way possible. A well-produced podcast is your money magnet. 10 million new listeners will be tuning in this year. You want them to hear your message, and I know it's a great one. Professional preparation to brand you, create a marketing strategy that really works, and fast-track your distribution channels will save you time and money. What are you waiting for? Podcast for profit today with the team at podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Join us. We are reaching millions, and so can you. I'm Teresa Maron, the Learn To Queen and content marketing expert for Podcasting by Professionals. I want to help you so you can help others.
I'm Keith Rupnick, team member with podcastingbyprofessionals.com, and this is news from Podcast.Place, the web's place for podcast industry news. Several celebrities and VIPs have announced their entry into the podcast world. Music producer Joey Sturgis, producer of movie soundtracks for films such as Asking Alexandria and The Devil Wears Prada, along with his co-producers, have entered the world of music podcasting with the launch of the Joey Sturgis Forum podcast. As a learning platform for young musicians and aspiring music industry professionals, the podcast will take the listeners inside the world of music production. The millionaire matchmaker host Patti Stanger is headed to the airwaves with a new podcast. The Bravo star has developed her own podcast series for the Sideshow Network titled The Love and Sex Report. Stanger, along with co-host David Weinger, discuss celebrity love and relationship news while providing exclusive dating tips and advice to listeners. Fans of the popular Welcome to Night Vale podcast will soon be able to immerse themselves into their favorite fictional town in a whole new way. Welcome to Night Vale, a novel, is due out October 20th and was written by the show's creators, Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor. Though the local news-inspired podcast has running storylines, the book appears to tell the story of just a few of the characters. Investigation Discovery, available on cable television, is offering crime fans a new way to experience original content without a television set. Investigation Discovery's first ever podcast serves as a companion to the new series, The Mind of a Murderer. Narrated by world-renowned criminal psychologist and trial consultant Dr. Michelle Ward, The Mind of a Murderer podcast expands on Dr. Ward's exclusive and chilling interviews with real-life Hannibal Lecter characters. Spreaker announces the launch of Spreaker Studio for iOS. The new version enables podcast creators to more seamlessly create audio content on the fly, which can either be streamed live or shared as podcasts. And finally, Courtside Entertainment, parent company of Podcast One, announces the addition of Triton Digital co-founder Mike Agavino in the newly created position of Executive Vice Chairman. Agavino co-founded Triton Digital in 2006 and has been Triton's COO ever since. He recently exited the company following Triton's acquisition by Vector Capital. For more podcast industry news updated daily, visit Podcast.Place, a website devoted exclusively to on-air hosts and producers working in the podcast industry. And for more information on how we can help you develop your podcast, visit podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Be sure to visit the Radio Links team member page. There you'll find links to Podcast.Place, Igloo Radio, our app for independent podcasts, and Radio Links Podcast Consulting for help on polishing your podcast for today's state-of-the-art. And that's what's happening in the podcast industry from Podcast.Place. I'm Keith Rupnick, Radio Links Broadcast Marketing, presented by podcastingbyprofessionals.com.
Join us next week on Podcast for Profit for Work Smart when our special guest is Linus Woods Mullen, who talks about how to repurpose your podcast content to monetize your show.
Become an expert host of your own show and podcast for profit with podcastingbyprofessionals.com. Join us. We're reaching millions.